There's a lot of anecdotal advice around on improving your marriage. But if you want something you can really use that will actually make a difference and reignite your marriage, check out the link in the description below.
Relationship advice to my 21-year-old daughter, disguised as an interview for her college communications class. My 21-year-old daughter, a college communications major, had a recent class assignment to interview 5 people who had been happily married for a long time. The first people she thought of, flatteringly, were her parents. I was thrilled to participate. I immediately recognized the interview as an opportunity to impart some fatherly relationship advice I might never get a chance to share in the ordinary course of things. She attends college in another state, so she emailed me the questions, and I spent most of the whole next day at my day job secretly responding while trying to appear as if I was busy with serious work. Well, I was. Not the work my employer pays me to do, but the kind of work that really matters in life. You may know the problem with the math here. My daughter is 21, but her mother and I have only been married for 18 years. Technically, she is my stepdaughter, but those kinds of distinctions simply don't exist in our family. She is the only daughter I have ever had, and I am the only father she has ever known. That's all the distinction we need. My daughter says she cried when she read this. And she got an A on the project. A win-win. The interview. Looking back to the last pleasant conversation you had with your spouse, whether it be 10 minutes ago, or a week ago, what were some of the characteristics that it involved? What tone did you have? What topics had been mentioned? Our most recent great in-depth conversation was last Sunday. We are almost a year and a half into a 5-year plan, working toward the day I can retire from my day job, and we will relocate to the arts community of Eureka Springs, Arkansas. My wife is an artist, and I am a writer. Our conversation Sunday was a philosophical discussion about the kind of people we want to be when we land in Eureka Springs, the kind of life we want to live there, the kinds of friends we hope to cultivate, etc. We shared at length about our current creative projects, and how we see those shaping us into the kind of people we want to be in the next chapter of our lives together. With our children grown and my day job put to rest, with a comfortable pension, we will be free like never before to make creativity the mainspring of our marriage and our lives. That's a very exciting possibility, and our conversation was charged with that excitement. How often do you say things like "I love you" or other phrases of reassurance to your spouse? Without these messages, would you feel less satisfied in your relationship? Several times every day. I wake my wife with coffee and kisses every morning, 365 days a year. I try to tell her I love her, and how important she is to me, every time those thoughts rise in my mind. When I feel it, I say it, because why keep that a secret? Without these messages, yes, my satisfaction would suffer. It would be like trying to live without breathing or eating. The last time your spouse saw you struggling with a task, did you feel as though they should help you? This could include chores, assignments, etc. If they did not help you, did you get offended? The kinds of tasks I struggle with are generally manual labor, things like fixing the plumbing, rewiring an outlet, or repairing the washing machine. That kind of guy work does not come naturally to me, but as a homeowner, it's my job to figure them out, with the help of course. My wife and I are both happy maintaining fairly traditional gender roles/division of labor in our marriage. Whether I'm good at these guy tasks or not, they remain my tasks. I don't resent that at all. I embrace it, and try to get better at this sort of thing with practice. And I have gotten better at it over the years. I might ask my wife to help with something like, "Can you hold this here while I..." And she has always jumped right in. But I would never ask, "Could you fix the plumbing while I work on the washer?" Both jobs are mine, and I would never seek that kind of help from her. I would never ask, so she would never have the opportunity to refuse, and I would never have the opportunity to get offended. It works well for us. How do you overcome problems that you face in your romantic relationships? Is it effective in solving the issue? My wife may have a different answer to this question than I do. But here's my strategy. I am aware enough of my own feelings to know that my love for my wife, and the permanency of our marriage, is a bedrock source of my long-term happiness in life. Over the 18 years we have been married, I have seen my happiness in the moment rise and fall due to various circumstances. I am not always wildly happy, every minute of every day, and I'm sure neither is my wife. But overall, my life with my wife is so dramatically better than my life was before we got together, that the down moments don't matter. Of course they seem to matter when they're happening, but I refuse to allow bursts of anger or frustration in a moment to outweigh 18 years of love. How this plays out practically is that, when an issue arises, for my part, maintaining the relationship is always more important than my feelings at the moment. I will explain my feelings, when having her understand those feelings seems like an important factor in working things out. But there is never any kind of ultimatum like I have seen in other people's marriages, where the conversation amounts to, you either do this, or I'm out of here. My wife knows I will never be out of here. My wife is not as verbal about this sort of thing as I am, but I feel reasonably sure that she is not going anywhere, either. When we discuss our problems, we both know that we are not discussing our unhappy marriage. We are discussing how to make our generally very happy marriage happier, or at least how to get back to happiness from this dark place we've fallen into. I think that lowers the stakes and lets us talk seriously about serious things. At the end of the day, we are still going to be married. We both want to be happy. Let's figure it out. Do you feel comfortable in sharing 100% of your thoughts, feelings, and fears with your spouse? Why? Did you in past relationships? 100% is a big number. I think anyone who sets sharing 100% of your thoughts, feelings, and fears as the standard for success in romantic relationships is setting themselves up for failure. Everyone is entitled to a private, interior life. My wife choosing to enter into a relationship with me does not rob her of the right to maintain a relationship with herself that is none of my business. My goal is to always be my best self in relationship with my wife. To me, that means that I need to review my thoughts and feelings in advance of sharing them, to see if they measure up to my own highest standards. If they don't, I need to do the work required to think and feel differently, to elevate my thoughts and feelings to the level of my best self. Then maybe I'll share with my wife. And my fears are mine to work out. If I need my wife's help with that, of course I do share. But it's important to work on my own fears, by and for myself, long enough to know if this is something that I actually need help with or not, before I involve her. Sharing 100% of your thoughts, feelings, and fears is something you do with a therapist, and marriage is not therapy. I know that in a lot of relationships, men expect women to manage their feelings for them. I think that's very unhealthy, though. Both for the marriage, and for the man. I'm sure it's unhealthy for the woman, too, who has her own thoughts, feelings and fears to deal with. I'll pare it down to this: yes, I feel comfortable sharing my mature, processed thoughts, feelings and fears with my wife. But she deserves better than to have me spew those things at her in their raw form. Regarding past relationships, no. I think I've always understood that being in a relationship with a woman does not replace or eliminate my relationship with myself, and the same for her. At least I don't remember not knowing that. The part about being one's best self and taking responsibility for one's own thoughts, feelings and fears, though, is something I have grown into with age and experience. For lack of that knowledge, my past relationships all eventually crashed and burned, which I guess counts as experience. How often do you openly speak about your relationship concerns or feelings with your spouse? Do you feel like it is generally beneficial, or is it only brought up in threats or toxic situations? That depends on what you mean by relationship concerns. We've been together long enough that little personal things like, I get mad when you do this, or why do you have to, were worked out a long time ago. Actual relationship concerns these days would be more practical issues like problems with finances, health, or our children. And we talk openly about those things whenever it is necessary to do so. That phrasing threats or toxic situations makes it sound like this question might be directed at couples who are younger than us, and haven't been married as long as we have. My wife and I do not threaten one another or tolerate emotional toxicity. If that sort of thing existed in our early years, we got over it. Do your friends and family's approval have an impact in your relationship? Why? Again, a question for younger people. We are in our 50s, and have been married for 18 years. All of our current friends are people we have befriended together. They've never known us apart, so I doubt they have an opinion about whether or not we should be together. Our parents' generation is pretty much dead and gone, though for the record, both of our fathers were already dead when we met, and both of our mothers were very happy we were together. It would never occur to me to ask family members of our own generation or younger how they feel about our marriage. I can't imagine how that could possibly matter, which I guess is the answer to your question. Think of strategies you use to maintain your relationship with your spouse, whether it be destructive or productive. What are they? I tell her every day that she is beautiful and that I love her. Every time I notice something, however small, that demonstrates how her presence makes my life better, I say it out loud. in front of other people if I can, because I want the world to appreciate how amazing my wife is. I consider it an important part of my job as her husband to be my wife's biggest fan and cheerleader. I do my best to manage my responsibilities to the marriage, family and home, not just the guy work, but paying the bills / maintaining the family budget, dealing with taxes, automobiles, etc., in a way that secures a good life for my family, and never pushes any of those responsibilities onto my wife. She has her own responsibilities to the marriage, family and home. I try to always respect my wife, which in my mind means remembering to treat her as a separate human being who does not exist only to meet my needs. She has her own inner life, her own thoughts, feelings and fears, her own priorities, opinions, talents, interests and goals, and all of those things matter. I try to remember that she is relying on me to keep up my end of the marriage, and I strive to be worthy of her trust. Are your strategies effective in having a satisfying marriage? You'd have to ask my wife. For myself, definitely. I am deeply satisfied with my marriage, but it's important to note that my strategies only account for part of that. The fact that my wife is a great wife, who employs her own strategies to build a great marriage with me, is the other side of that coin. Some people say marriage is a two-way street, but that is wrong. A great marriage is two one-way streets, my all for her, and her all for me. That's when the magic happens. Thanks for reading. Read more from Jack Preston King at